This is Father Anthony here at Our Lady of the Miraculous Medal in Ridgewood. As you know, for the last 2 months, our churches have all been closed for the Diocese of Brooklyn and Queens, as well as most of the houses of worship throughout our city, throughout our state, and certainly throughout our country. As a result of it, many of us long to be back in our church. We really don't have any indication at this point when our churches will reopen again. We're waiting for the governor and the mayor to tell us that, and then our bishops will follow suit. But until then, from the bishop's office, we have received instructions on how we are to divide our churches and subdivide them in terms of where people can sit and how they will sit when our churches do reopen and we're able to celebrate Mass once again. I have to tell you, my friends, that things will never be the same again. And sorry to say, some of the customs and things that we are used to doing will have to change dramatically. And so you may notice here in our church that we have already taped off the benches where people will not be able to sit. And it's not every other bench, but every 2 benches that will be open in order for people to sit. Since the distancing factors are 6 feet apart, so in every bench, if we place tapes or indicators where people can sit at 6 feet apart, 6 feet distance from one another, in any given bench, at least for the long benches, only 3 people can stay in one bench. For the shorter benches, it will only be 2 people in a bench, again 6 feet apart. And it will not be every other bench, but as I mentioned before, every 2 benches. We can fit comfortably in the size of our church from 750 to 800 people. But because we are put in this situation under the circumstances that we find ourselves in this pandemic, and for much more time to come, in subdividing our church, we can only fit 88 people. And so as a result of it, for the schedule of Masses that we have, only 88 people would be permitted to be seated at any time in our churches, given the schedule that we have from Saturday evening at 5 p.m. to the morning, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10:30, 11:45, and 12:45. With that, we are also asked to tell you that anyone who wishes to come into our church must come wearing a mask. This is essential, and the mask must be worn throughout the entire liturgy. Anybody who does not have a mask will not be permitted to come into the church. It's for your safety and the safety of others as well. And so we recommend that when we do open our churches and you do return, you must bring a mask with you. We will not provide the mask, so you will have to bring your own mask at the time that you come to church. Also, many of you have been used to coming to one particular hour of Mass that you like to come when our Masses are scheduled. You may have to change that, because you might find that if the church already has all of the seats taken according to the way the benches are divided, and no one else can come in, then you may have to choose another Mass to come to. That will be seen as the first and second weekends by the time that the church reopens, and people will be able to see when they can come in. And so it's going to be challenging, to say the least, sometimes maybe a little frustrating, but because the pandemic and this COVID virus has not stopped by any stretch of the imagination, we are asked to follow these instructions given to us by the bishop's office, which has been given by the state and the city for houses of worship. So we ask you to please be compliant to them. Even if you come into the church and you find that there's no seating available to you, you're not allowed to loiter in the back and stand. You'll have to leave the church. And also there is a instruction in which there has to be a constant flow of the church. So the three main entrances of the church, which are the three doors at the entrance of the church, those will only be for entrances, not for exits. At the end of Mass, you are to exit either by the door on Bleecker Street, which will be an exit door, or the two side doors between the alleyway between the rectory and the church, which would be right back here by the painting of the apparition of the Blessed Mother, or by the shrine of the Blessed Mother here coming off of the schoolyard where you park your cars. Those will be exits only, which means the doors will be locked so that you can't come in but can only go out. So there would be a entrance coming in from the main part of the church, and then afterwards, that the Mass is completed, you will only be allowed to go out of the doors that are indicated by the Bleecker Street side and by the side of the alley between the church and the rectory. Those are two exits that can go out, plus the third one here on Bleecker Street. So there'll be three ways to come in, 3 doors to come in, and 3 doors to go out. We haven't received any instructions so far in terms of how the distribution of Holy Communion will take place, so that's being worked on now. Also, we've been asked to curtail the amount of time that can be spent in our church for the celebration of the Mass. As you know, when on Sunday mornings when the music is playing and hymns are being sung, that takes much more time. For the first few weeks, for the first few weekends when we do open, we will not have any music because we have to see how the procedure is going to work. People can get used to it, and we need to move people out so that another group can come in for the next Mass. So it's important to know that our Masses will not be as long as they've been before. They will be shorter as a result of the lack of music and the need to be moving all of the time. The instructions that we have received pertain to the fact that in a given space, if you keep too many people in a given space too much time, it has a tendency to maybe breed the virus. And so therefore, to come in, we celebrate Mass, and then departure. And again, we mentioned that you must bring a mask with you and wear it at all times. When all the seating is completed in the church, we can begin Mass. No one is allowed to stand in the back, as sometimes people do, or loiter even in the vestibule, the entrance to the church. Okay? Also, I'm going to be asking the 104 precinct on Catalpa Avenue to provide us with some police officers, at least for the first couple of weekends, so that everyone gets used to and comfortable to the fact of how our new way of the new procedures that we have for the celebration of the Mass will be taking place on the weekends, and the police officers will be able to help us also in the new instructions. There will be signs on all the doors outside saying entrance, as well as those doors that will say exit. Okay, the Mass schedule will remain the same. Okay, we will place other instructions on the door regarding that there's only 88 people that are allowed to be in church at any one time, and no one is allowed to loiter in the vestibule of the church, nor stand in the back of the church as well. Also, we're supposed to be receiving instructions regarding the collection. The latest instruction that's been given, I don't know if this is going to be modified, but rather than the ushers coming to each of the benches, to avoid that closeness in contact, we might be leaving baskets in the middle of the church so that when you come in, you can place your offerings in the baskets of the church and then go to your seats as well. And we'll probably have baskets also at the exits so that you can do that as well. We, at the present time, prefer that you give online your offerings, which is Give Central if you go to our website. The new website that we have, which we've already spoken about, and we'll tell you more about that as well. There is a category called Giving, and when you click on it, it's the way of giving online is done through Give Central, which is very simple, just some basic information and how much you wish to donate, and that will help us a lot. The other ways of donating would be by mailing it in. We're picking up the mail every day now so that we get your offerings as well. And the only other way would be that coming to the rectory, you can drop your offerings into the mail slot at the door. The gates are open. And so this is what we have come to at this point in terms of celebrating Mass when we reopen our churches. Okay? I will be doing this again, repeating some of this information again, and give you some more details, especially for the distribution of Holy Communion. So we ask you to be patient, to keep praying at home. Remember, your homes have become now the domestic church, from which all sacrifice and prayers are said, and to be listening attentively also to the instructions that we give you for those of you who connect with us on our website, as well as on Facebook and on YouTube. I understand that a lot of this is on YouTube as well. So we thank you very much for your cooperation, and keep praying for an end to this situation, or at least that it lighten itself up enough that we will be able to get back to some normalcy of our lives. I ask you also in a special way to pray for us, the priests here at Miraculous Medal. Although we have not seen each other for the last couple of months, please know that in the beauty of our church, in the sacredness of our church, in the sanctity of our church, Mass is still celebrated every day for your intentions and for the good of the greater community.